Hello Internet, and welcome to my live reaction for Eden Zero, chapter 140. When we last left our heroes, we largely focused on the battle between Eraser and Shura's forces over at Nero 66, as we saw more examples of Shura's just wanton callousness as he murders his general, for implying that Ijuna is just his consort, so win for feminism, I guess. Um, but yeah, it's more Shura and his just kind of edgelord murder spree worst. But we do get a good look at Eraser, whose ether gear sort of allows him to just erase entire fleets. I wasn't quite sure if he erased the entire fleet or at least a good number of it. But yeah, Eraser is really powerful. And amid all of this, Goodwin and the Eden Zero crew are on their way to Nero 66 to sneak in and fight Shura and stop Y'all Link and do all the things that they want to do. So with that, let's jump right on into Chapter 140, Charge, to Planet Nero 66. And our picture is of Witch in a sort of barmaid's outfit, just being a waitress at a bar. It is what it is. I don't really have any thoughts on it. Anyway, we open on Eden Zero and the Oasis ship as they're sort of headed towards Nero 66. And we have Laguna, who's just sort of staring out the window, looking at the Oasis ship. And we explicitly see his reflection kind of paired with the Oasis ship. I wonder if that means anything, or if it's just sort of a random visual choice. Anyway, we hear a phone ring in Laguna's pocket, and he pulls it out, and a little view screen of Ibaraki shows up, who just says out of nowhere, "If and so." And Laguna looks at him, "Ibaraki, how have you been?" And Laguna sort of looks at him kind of silently, not really answering the question. So Ibaraki kind of drops it. "So about the boss." And we flash back to what Goodwin said back in, I think, 136 or so, before the fight in the marketplace, I think, to Laguna. "I'm happy to work with the Eden Zero. But you, Laguna, you're another story. I don't like allies when they betray my organization." And Laguna sort of looks up at him, just kind of placidly. But Ibaraki just kind of counters that whole thought. "He talks like that, sure, but on the inside, he ain't that upset." Okay, that's kind of a twist on all of the interactions with Laguna that both Ibaraki and Goodwin have had. And Laguna kind of brings that up. "Yet you aimed a gun at me the minute you saw me. If and I wanted to kill you, I'd have shot you already." Okay. So it was just sort of playing tough. And the boss, well, in front of the guys, I know. And it's true that I deserted the group. And Ibaraki kind of shouts back, "If and so. But you're back now, to help us fight Nero again." Okay. So it seems like they're not, they sort of have to put on this tough act to, maybe discourage desertion. But in the end, they seem to, genuinely care for Laguna, both Goodwin and Ibaraki. That's the kind of vibe I get, that there is some sort of actual camaraderie between that trio. Laguna looks at him, "You never change, Ibaraki." And Ibaraki kind of turns back to just some of the guys, some of the recurring characters, I guess giving them names, who are apparently all listening into this phone call. So I guess Goodwin's sort of tough act isn't really that important. But anyway, Dylan, Farina, and those are the two siblings we've been seeing. Russo, who I'm guessing is our masked bunny man. Lizar is the lizard man's name. What a fucking name. Imagine being a lizard person and you name your son Lizar. Gomakichi, who's this kind of bald, buff guy we've never really seen before, I don't think. We're all doing good. And Laguna turns to him. "You know, I've been wondering. I haven't seen the princess." And Ibaraki sort of is chokes up at that. I guess that's a former member of their team. And Laguna continues, "Don't tell me. If and so. She went to rescue some of our troops and got caught. And Shura killed her." Okay, so there's some member of their group that Shura killed. A princess? Maybe maybe Sandra was its own kingdom before the Empire came in, and she was the princess of that kingdom. Um, and she kind of joined Oasis to free her people. But we'll see as all this plays out. And Shura killed her. The wild theory is that she's actually Ijuna in disguise. For some reason, that popped into my head. I don't think I'm right on that point, but it's a theory that I'm going to keep in mind in the back of my head. If I'm right, I called it here. And Ibaraki sort of like shakes up. Her beautiful face. It was so mangled we couldn't even tell who she was anymore. Yeah, she's alive. She is alive and she is Ijuna. That's my theory. Or at least one of the oceans. Because when someone in fiction says that a person's face was so mangled we couldn't even tell who she was anymore, that means they don't know that she's dead. But either way, Ibaraki is still kind of like shaking as he relates this. Ugh, damn that Shura, that twisted bastard. And Laguna kind of sighs. And Ibaraki kind of gets mad again, comes to himself. "So we're also fighting to avenge our princess's death. Let's take him down, Laguna." And Laguna looks up, kind of determined now. Yeah. And then he hangs up, and Weisz walks up. "A princess in a rebel army? So what, is she from the royal family of a fallen kingdom? Like some kind of fairy tale?" Here's a fun note. The way that's kind of described... well, no. For a second, I was thinking of Vivi from One Piece, but it's been too long since I've read Baroque works, and I think I have to mix up some very important details of Vivi's story to make that click. Forget I said anything about that. It's just my late night videos, and I'm a little bit tired. So ignore that. And Laguna sort of looks at him, and then he explains. "She was the last boss's daughter. Bright, cheerful, an indomitable spirit. She and Goodwin have been the backbone of the organization since the old boss died." So there's an old boss. Okay. I'm wondering if this sort of refutes my Ijuna theory. It might. But we'll see. Weisz kind of responds that it sounds like her death is a pretty heavy blow. Laguna just doesn't even look at him. "That's none of your business." And then he moves to leave, and Weisz stops him. "Wait, is Nero what you've been after all along? Draken's another one of the Erasion says Galactica. You joined his team so you could beat Nero. And now that we've beaten Draken, you're cozying up to us. It was your..." And Laguna snaps back. "It was your sorceress who asked me to join you." "Yeah, but you were going to contact us with or without the invitation." "Or maybe you'd have gone to Elsie. Either way, you've been bouncing from group to group, trying to find the one that could beat Nero." And Laguna doesn't deny it. I'm questioning how this idea that Weisz has sort of meshes with what we saw of Laguna's inner thoughts between Foresta and Sandra, with the implication that he was working for someone, I think. I have to go back and read that chapter, but I think that was kind of the implication. But we'll see. We'll take a look-see there. We'll wait and see. Not so much taking a look-see. You know what I mean. But anyway, Laguna starts to walk away, and Weisz follows after him. "Why not just join the government? If I'd had an education, I might have." And Weisz sort of like grabs Laguna by the shoulder, and then like grabs him by the collar and like gets up in his face. "You better not drag us into your problems." I mean, we're kind of already there, Weisz. We kind of already made it. Shiki would have fought this battle with or without me. And Weisz sort of growls, "If anything happens that gets any of my crew killed in this fight, I will kill you." it's nice to see how much Weisz has kind of grown into like genuinely caring for the crew of Edens. Um, like he's no longer just sort of kind of hanging on like he was in his early chapters. He's a member of this crew and he cares for them. Uh, and like he is all in. Though Laguna is right. Shiki would have done this with or without him. But anyway, we then cut to the Eden's kitchen. As Rebecca walks up to Couchpo. Couchpo? And Couchpo looks at her. Oh, looking good, Becky. Like you're ready to go to war. Uh, and Rebecca says kind of the important thing to Couchpo. Now is your last chance if you want to leave the ship. We'll be preparing for battle soon. Yeah, like Couchpo is not a combatant. She's a food blogger, or food YouTuber. Like this is not exactly her place. She doesn't even have an ether gear. But Couchpo responds, "How can you talk to me like that? I thought we were friends. I mean, it's true I can't fight like Shiki can, but I can at least protect this kitchen." And a smile as it brings to your faces. And Rebecca just sort of lightly needles her. You just said you can't fight. Well, if it's to save the food, then maybe my dormant powers will awaken, right? I mean, it's not that different than Rebecca's powers first activating under stress. But Happy kind of questions, how would that make sense? But Couchpo gets a little serious now. The thing is, when you're in the same boat, it means you live your lives together. I chose to be here on this ship. If I decide to leave whenever things get tough, I wouldn't be living life with you, would I? Okay, but like, no one, did anyone really think Couchpo was going to be a permanent member of the crew? I thought she was just kind of there because she didn't really want to stay on Foresta in the aftermath of Foresta. But I guess she's a permanent fixture of Eden Zero now. Alright, that's a thing. And Rebecca sort of smiles at her. Couchpo. But just then the intercom comes on. We will soon be entering the combat zone. All hands, please report to battle stations. Couchpo looks up at her. Go on. When the fight's over, we'll share a delicious meal together. Yeah. That's a nice little like friend moment between Rebecca and Couchpo. And it's nice. Couchpo's sort of a weird character in her role in the story right now. But their bond is genuine, it feels. But anyway, the Eden Zero is now approaching the battle around Nero 66. And Witch has arrived to do some exposition. The Union army has engaged Shura's forces. We will sneak around them on this side and head to the planet's surface. However, and we see Goodwin is also on the call. There are no perfectly clear paths to our destination. It is unlikely that we will avoid confrontation. And Goodwin tells her, we'll act as your diversion. The Eden Zero is fast enough. You can get through while we keep him busy. And Shiki just sort of watches the battle through the window, and Pino walks up to him. What is the matter, Master? Those lights. And we see like the explosions of the battle in the distance. Do you think they're explosions? Do you think every time one goes off, somebody dies? Pino's sort of stunned at this. They were all people. They could have been friends, but they're killing each other. And Homura walked up to him and smiles. You are a kind man, but Shiki stops her. I know. And he like lightly bumps the window with his fist. We won't stop. We'll beat Shura and put an end to this war. And then we cut to the Rutherfords, who are also watching, along with Moscow, apparently. And Clean says, the ocean above and the ocean below. They're so close. And Chris responds, I guess we'll be high tide soon. And Moscow just has a simple, Moskoy! And Clean looks up at Chris. My dear brother, will you fight with us? Honestly, I'd rather not put you in any danger. And then he looks down at her and sort of lightly smiles. It's sort of a very smaller version of what we kind of saw with Weisz earlier. But I can't let this ship go down. You know, he's like he's not at Weisz's. If you kill anyone on this ship, if anyone on the ship dies because of you, you die. But you see there, you know, there's a genuine affection for the crew at this point. Like Laguna, I think, could still very easily leave the Eden Zero at some point. The Rutherfords are here to stay. They are permanent crew members. Um, and I could see in another 100 chapters, Chris has the same reaction to what Laguna has done, or at least what Weisz thinks Laguna has done that Weisz has. But anyway, Chris is sort of or Clean goes to give Moscow a hug. That's great, isn't it, Moscow? Moscowy! And Chris sort of like snaps at her. Careful! And now the battle has kind of begun as we cut to Sister and Hermit at battle stations. Enemy ships at 12 o'clock. Here they come. And as the Eden Zero and Oasis approach the battle, Goodwin lets out a battle cry. Let's go, guys! Make a path through the Eden Zero. Give him a taste of the Maine Coon's firepower. Which I guess is the name of their ship. I guess that's a kind of raccoon, right? And I guess, like, I kind of viewed it as a cat. Oh, no, it is a cat. The Maine Coon is a large domesticated cat breed, per Wikipedia, which fits Goodwin's sort of being a giant cat man. Give him a taste of the Maine Coon's firepower. And we see the siblings, Dylan and Firenna, heading out. And Dylan and Firenna sort of break out on their fighters. Russo's on his way, yo. Lizar, ready to launch. Gomakichi, ready. I think Gomakichi might be a bot, actually. I called him a buff guy earlier. I think he's a bot. But anyway, our 5 named Oasis sub-members sort of go to join the battle. Ibaraki, launching! And we see on Ibaraki's fighter, there's a giant flag that just says Oasis on it. But anyway, all of them sort of, join the battle, start blowing up ships. I'm guessing Shura's ships, but I don't quite remember neither the designs of the IUA ships or the Empire ships were quite, memorable enough for me to remember them a week later. So I'm not quite sure which side they're fighting. But generally, both sides are probably going to be slightly hostile to the Eden Zero and Oasis. I'm guessing this is Shura's guys, because also they seem to be facing away from the planet, which would make sense if they were defending it. So I'm guessing these are Shura's ships, which definitely makes sense for Oasis to be fighting. And the Starshines all kind of watch, as Oasis just sort of, wreaks havoc through the enemy lines. Hermit, wow, they're good. And we see Sister's kind of like growling, but one of those ships is making an awful lot of noise. I don't know what that's about. And Weisz doesn't really comment on it, saying, now is our chance. Onward to Nero 66. Eden Zero, maximum speed. But there's still some Imperial ships headed towards them. Enemy at 3 o'clock. Fire Scorpion missiles. Eden Zero shoots some missiles out towards those Imperial ships, blowing them up. Thereby killing them, of course. And I'm curious if we're going to see Shiki sort of commenting in the same way he did with the ships he saw from a distance there. Or if that one reference to it is just kind of enough for now. But we see just the mass explosion Eden Zero is leaving in its wake. To Nero 66, charge! And they make it through. We see the cloud layer and the Eden Zero kind of emerging from beneath it. Let's go! And Shiki calls, time to start the battle! And everyone, we see Weisz, Homura, and Rebecca, we see the ex-Draken members and Moscow, we see the mini-bots, we see the Starshines. They're all ready for the battle to start. And then we cut to Shura, and one of his men, who tells him, Lord Shura, one of the battleships has slipped past our defensive line. And they recognize the Eden Zero. That ship, it's Ziggy's. No, wait, it feels different. That's not Ziggy. Who is it? Who is this dark gravity? And we see that Shura is directly there, sensing Shiki. So I figured, when Shura said that ship at Ziggy's, my first assumption was that, he had seen the Eden's One at this point, which I'm not sure if he has, but he had seen the Eden's One, and that he knew that ship wasn't quite the same as the Eden Zero. But the fact that he specifically says, who is this dark gravity? um, implies that he's actually sensing the gravity power Shiki is giving off, which is definitely interesting. But there's not a whole lot to really talk about with this last page, beyond Shura being sort of alerted to Shiki's existence. So I'm going to focus my retrospective review part on the rest of the chapter. And it's a chapter I really, really like. So we get some more context for Laguna to start out. Seeing that if Weisz is right, he never really left Oasis in order to, like, because he didn't care about the cause. He left Oasis because he cared about the cause too much. And there's a chance that Laguna is still hiding something. I'll have to go back to that one chapter, I think it's like 132 or so, where Laguna sort of, like, implies there's more that he's hiding. Because also I think didn't Laguna explicitly say, y'all cannot fight Nero? Absolutely not, you'll just die. So it seems kind of weird for him to have said that, and then simultaneously want them to fight Nero. So I'm gonna hold off on really commenting on that, until we get more context for Laguna. The princess, though, I mean, especially before we got any more context for her, I was like, okay, she's definitely Juna. Because of that line, we couldn't even tell who she was anymore. That's not what you say about living people. And so my guess, it is at least one of the oceans, if not Ijuna herself. And that's still kind of my theory. Maybe she's been, like, brainwashed or something. If it is Ijuna, that would explain why she's kind of so silent, so emotionless, that she's sort of brainwashed. I've been reading the Poe Dameron comics in Star Wars, and one of the main villains in that sort of gets brainwashed. So it's distinctly on my mind, and he's kind of left sort of servile and mostly mute. So that's sort of what I'm thinking there, in that kind of Terex vibe. Let me see if there's, though, because we know it was some time when Ijuna was Shura's consort, and then she became his secretary. If the last chapter, if I'm understanding last chapter properly, and I don't quite have if we've been told the timeline, I don't remember the timeline of Laguna sort of defecting from Oasis and joining up with Draken. So if someone does remember exactly and it doesn't quite add up with what we know about Ijuna, and, like, if it's been, like, 6 months or something, or even a year, and not much more than a year, then maybe it doesn't quite add up. Ijuna having time to, like, be brainwashed and then and then be Shora's consort and then be his secretary. We'll see. I'm not quite sure. But anyway, let's move on. I love the Weisz scene. Even if, Weisz may be wrong about Laguna's motives, like, Weisz is just, I am here for the crew of Evens, and no one else really matters to me. I'll help Oasis, but my main goal here is making sure my friends make it out alive. And if any of them don't, and you have dragged us into this mess, Laguna, that's on you, and I will get revenge. And, like, you love to see it. It's just cool. It's there's a certain kind of, I sort of bemoaned Eden Zero's darkness in the past because it's largely just sort of BDSM and grimdark themes sort of replace it, sort of masquerading as deep. But this is a really effective sort of dark take on Mashima's love of friendship. Is things like this of my friends die, then that's it for you. We also see it kind of again with the Shiki scene a little later. I'll skip Rebecca and Couchpo for now. But the Shiki is like they're all people that could have been friends, but they're killing each other. I mean, it's sort of a shonen meditation on the horrors of war. Through specifically the friendship themes that Mashima used back in infamously used over and over back in Fairy Tail. So there's a lot of interesting things there. And it's a darkness that works. Unlike, say, its BDSM instincts. We also got this Rebecca and Couchpo scene, though, and it's cute. Couchpo is still a character that's, like, not great, I will say. But, like, Couchpo, like, the bond between Rebecca and Couchpo is genuine, and Couchpo is like, even if I can't do anything, I'm gonna be here for you, because you're my friend, and I'm not abandoning you. And it's sweet. I like it. But yeah, with that, it's time for the battle to begin. And we don't really get a lot of the battle. We just see Oasis sort of, blowing up some starfighters, and then Eden Zero blows them some starfighters of their own, and then they make planetfall. And with that, they are on Nero 66, and maybe we will be dealing with Shura much sooner than we thought. There are still 4 members of the Oceans on Nero 66 as well. And Ijuna, if Ijuna is the princess, then that will end up coming into play as well, I'm sure. But yeah, as this chapter works as sort of the last rest chapter before, everything sort of goes to shit, and the Eden Zero and Oasis have entered the war. It does a great job of that, just sort of giving us one last minute to sort of spend time with these characters, see how they care for each other, see their relationship dynamics, and then throw us all into the horrors of war. And I cannot wait to see where we go from here. So I'm going to leave this video off here. Hope you all enjoyed the chapter and the video itself. If you did, feel free to drop me a like or subscribe. Do whatever makes you happy, And remember, your life is your own, okay? Bye!